Okay. All right. So welcome, everybody. I'm really excited to be able to talk to you today and introduce you to an excellent clinician, Antonio. And Antonio has been working with our team for a little while, about 6 months or so. And I just really am excited about, letting you all know about him. Antonio is an amazing clinician who has a lot of experience, different specialties and niches. Antonio is licensed in both Georgia and Michigan, and he practices out of his location is out of Michigan, and so he sees clients virtually, both in Michigan and in Georgia. And so what we're going to talk to you today about is a little bit more about some of his specialties, and in particular, one specialty area with sports and performance psychology. And so to start off, Antonio, so glad to be talking with you today and introducing you to everyone. Do you want to tell a little bit about, how you have come to Therapeutic Recovery Network, and a little bit about what you're doing now, and then we can go into talking about the sports psychology.
Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. It's great, to be part of the practice. For me, it's been a really refreshing change. In terms of my career so far, I do have a specialization in performance and sports psychology. I have a master's degree both in counseling psychology and in the sports psychology piece as well. With that said, yeah, my experience has taken me in a variety of different directions. I used to work also at a clinic before coming here to TRN. That experience was also very fruitful. I was able to learn a lot, especially from a clinical perspective. I was able to really strengthen the clinical basis that I was able to learn and implement during grad school. With that said, the opportunity, as good as it was, it also didn't necessarily allow me to pursue other interests of mine, in passions of mine, such
Yeah.
as the performance and sport piece, which is what I went back to doing, kind of going back to my roots. I have an extensive background in sports. I was a college athlete myself. I was a
Yeah, tell us more
coach.
about that. What did you
Yeah,
do as an athlete and coach?
yeah, absolutely. So I played. I played. I'm a 4-year college athlete. Um, and well, I mean, the experience as a whole was obviously great. Um, I think that when we start thinking about collegiate sports, there's a lot more that sort of goes into play related
Yeah.
to being able to cope with anxiety, cope with pressure, cope with so many different responsibilities, right? We have academics, um, we have obviously, just the team goals, team
Mhm.
expectations. We have our own interpersonal relationships. We have our own interests, right? It can be really overwhelming sometimes
Yeah,
to
and
be a college
usually
athlete.
to become a college athlete, usually that pressure starts at a very young age to get to that level, right?
Absolutely, and it's not uncommon, for example, for people to start experiencing performance anxiety prior to them even sort of going deeper into their athletic journey and athletic career.
Mm-hmm.
These are extremely prevalent things in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's
Mhm.
so awesome. Congratulations on all those accomplishments of
Thank you.
4 years of college athlete experience and coaching. That's just a really cool background, and I think a huge strength that you have as a professional in person.
Well,
So,
thank you.
okay,
Appreciate it.
so let's talk a little bit more about, just for the people that might not really know, like what is sport and performance psychology exactly?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So sport and performance psychology is psychology that is essentially focused on enhancing performance. It's very driven, very geared at focusing on the specific sport piece in terms of how to maximize performance, how to evaluate and analyze further what your relationship to the sport is like, Sport and performance psychology are very sort of they have very specific interventions, very specific strategies as to how to implement different techniques to enhance that performance, and also to better understand where you're at in your journey. Because sometimes, in
Mhm.
sports, it can be sometimes tricky to check in with yourself
Yeah,
and to really evaluate, okay, where am I at in this process. It can be
right.
really common to just get used to the go of
Yeah, I was
just
about to
performing and trying
say,
to do better.
like having kind
Mhm.
of no idea, like where are you at, like, tuning into your body. It's just kind of more like focusing on the outside versus the inside, which can create the overwhelm probably of the system.
Absolutely, 100%. And we do see that a lot of the time. So in performance psych, not only are we trying to drill those types of techniques and those types of strategies for people to keep with themselves in terms of how to maximize their performance, but also to evaluate and think a bit deeper in terms of what their relationship to the sport is like,
Hmm.
without necessarily getting or going as deep to in other areas, such as more clinical areas, or more mental health related areas. Sport and
Yeah.
performance psych are very sort of very specific, if that makes sense, even in the type of
Yeah.
work that we do. Yes.
Yeah, I've been noticing, like in college football, for example, like how Georgia this year, used a sports psychologist, and people were even saying that's the difference that it made for the team. They could really tell, and they really talked a lot about that. So I've really noticed that it's become more kind of normal sort of to use it in sports, or like maybe they're talking about it more. I've also noticed like more athletes coming out and talking about, different mental health issues. And so I think
Absolutely.
it's good to see that it's becoming something more accepted in, that in the whole sports world. Because I think in the past, maybe it wasn't something talked about as much. There was more of a stigma.
Absolutely. And I think that sport and performance psych has that benefit, right? And especially where we're at today, currently, and socially, culturally as well, when it comes to the idea of mental health, especially in athletes, right? Athletes are historically a population that has been highly underserved, and that has to
Hmm.
do also with, sport related stigmas and culture within sports, in terms
Hmm.
of, athletes need to be tough, athletes need to, don't necessarily talk that much about their experience. They're really high
Yeah.
performers, they can keep it all together. And obviously, sports have a great ability to sort of get people to develop different types of skills, mentally speaking. But
Yeah.
there's also obviously instances where we also may need extra support, whether it is in sport performance realms, or just kind of, hey, I need to kind of bounce ideas back and
Hmm.
forth with someone else for a little bit, for me to kind of gain more awareness and insight as to things that
Yeah.
might be going on inside.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
And
been really helpful. Mhm.
and then I was also thinking about how it might play into, injuries, and where people might begin to have like pain meds, things like that, and like being able to get through that whole process as well, and being able to like, have a mental health professional that has experience in those areas to help them
Certainly.
through when there's an injury. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with their identity as well when they can't play, and they
Mhm.
have to sit out due to an
Mhm.
injury.
Yeah, and the thing with injuries too is that, because of the role and the identity of an athlete, a lot of our worth sometimes has to do
Right.
with whether or not we're playing, or whether or not we can play, right? So
Right.
that's getting more in the autonomy piece of it. And if we're injured, there's obviously a sense of power, and a sense of, or more powerlessness, and lack of control that goes into those experiences, right? So it can be really challenging to go through those experiences. So yeah, sports psychology also sort of develops very intentional plans, intentional routines, and strategies for us to be able to cope better with those situations, manage them,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to get ourselves back to a
Mm-hmm.
position of not only enjoyment, but of fulfillment, if that makes
That's
sense.
great. That's great. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to read this a little bit under, if this is on our website, and we'll share a link in the notes about, to go to this page of more about it. So it said, how does it work? Sport and performance psychology involves the use of evidence-based approaches, methods, and interventions. It also includes consideration of relevant cultural variables that may be impacting one's experience. It utilizes individual and group consulting or counseling, depending on the need. And it also targets goal setting, concentration, motivation, relaxation, imagery. And the general objective is to teach mental skills necessary to perform consistently. And then, okay. And then what about this? What about if the person is not an athlete? How can sport or performance psychology help them? Like if for people who are not athletes?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you asked that question, because performance psychology is also something that has been used, and it has been used to great effect. It's important to say that, right? To great effect with other people who are not necessarily athletes, but we use these same techniques and strategies with, for example, just high achieving executives, people who work in the arts, people who are just essentially focused on performing, right? And when we think about this too, we're all performing to some degree in our life, right?
True.
In one or in at least one realm of our life, we are always performing as human beings in this society, for sure. Absolutely.
I could
So
see it
it's
being
applicable for everyone.
Yeah, I could see that being really useful for like salespeople, who like every year have a sales goal that they keep having to reach higher and higher. Like you said, those top executives being able to help them have that balance to be able to keep the motivation going year after year. I could see that being really useful for that type of client. And like you said, we are in a culture where it's like, focused on performance. And I think the challenge is, how do you stay grounded and, balance yourself when that's like the culture or job, or, that's what we're kind of focused on, is like, okay, achieving. So I think that's true. That's a good point, that everyone, could benefit from that from that type of therapy
Absolutely.
then.
Yeah, and it can be really beneficial too, because again, because of the level of stress that we're under, whether we are an athlete or an artist or a high performer, or just a person who just attends their day-to-day job, it can be really overwhelming, like I said before, right? So having that type of space where you can at least process through your experience, and having a space also where you can be sort of acknowledged and validated as a human being. Number one, that at a very basic level can be really powerful, but also then having a space where you can really also identify specific directions that, okay, this is where I'm at. These are the cards that I've been dealt. How can I make the most out of them moving forward based on where I want to get to, right? And that can be really a really effective and fruitful space for people to have. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the big thing too is, I can tell, and I do know even from your personal client, the things clients have said about working with you, but I think your style really makes people feel like no matter where they're at, that you make them feel really, really supported. Your style is very non-judgmental, very caring. Plus, I know that you really believe in the outcomes of this. That the hope and the outcomes of, you've seen the outcomes of your work with clients with, using the sports psychology and the performance psychology focus. And so your passion really comes through, I know, with the clients about this, because that it really works, like it's very effective. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the beauty about using evidence-based techniques, right?
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Because they're scientifically researched, so they give a lot of value. And
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Okay, so that's really great. So let's see. Now I'll tell a little bit more about you, and then we can kind of tell people like how to be able to reach out to schedule with you. Okay. So okay, so Antonio graduated from Boston University with a master's in counseling psychology and a specialization in sports psychology. He is a licensed professional counselor. And oh, this is what I was going to ask you about too. He's trained in brain spotting, phase 1 and phase 2. So I know that you incorporate that a lot in your work, even
Absolutely.
with the the sport and performance psychology, you incorporate the brain spotting in that too, where necessary, right?
Yes, absolutely. And
Okay.
that's also something that has added a great sort of depth, I suppose, to the work, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
to just to combine to the already present strategies that we try to target and try to be very intentional with. Brain spotting can be really extremely impactful
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to deeper processing and just sort of being able to create connections and then to get people to experience relief in a very short amount of time for them to move forward
Right.
in whatever endeavors they're engaged in a positive way. Yeah.
Right, because there might be some kind of emotional thing that has blocked them, or an event that has blocked them from being able to perform to the level they want to be at. And so the brain spotting can come in and clear that out. And it's another evidence-based approach that's very effective.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then we have you're trained in CBT, DBT, and polyvagal theory, and you work from an attachment-based IFS and EFT informed approach in conjunction with that. And I'm going to just list off some sports psychology experience that you've had. So it looks like Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge. You were a sports psychology intern for swimming and diving. Wheelock College, Boston, Massachusetts, sports psychology intern for men's tennis. Wheelock College, women's field hockey. Berkmar High School in Lilburn, Georgia, with track and field. And then Boston English High School, you also did coaching and sports psychology intern, and this was for academics and behavioral challenges. And wow, that's some really awesome experience. That's a lot of great
Yeah.
experience that you have.
Luckily, yeah, luckily, I think, we all get started in the field somehow, right? In whichever field we're in.
Yeah.
And yeah, luckily my experience as a student has allowed me to be around it with teams, so especially for example, I heard you mentioning the tennis teams, the college, college tennis, college field hockey, and then yeah, the swimming and diving team for MIT. Those were really, I think, just enjoyable experiences and
Yeah.
definitely allowed for a lot of learning, just to get
Yes.
to understand better about the field. So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel really lucky for that. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay, and then so you offer counseling sessions for residents of Georgia and Michigan. So this can be in any areas of Georgia, any area of Michigan. And then if people want to, schedule a free consult, they can do that with you. That would be just like a short free consult to see if it's a good match. Or they can go ahead and schedule, of course, a full session to get started with you for these services. And we'll definitely post the link, but it's therapeuticrecoverynetwork.com. And if you go on there, that's how you would contact to get scheduled with Antonio. You can also call the phone number, which is 404-426-7612, to be able to get scheduled with you. And you still have some open availability for new clients.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm accepting new clients. I have just a few more open slots. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Well, anything else you wanted to say today, or?
No, not so much. Just thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for having me. I certainly look forward to if someone wants to call or anything. I'm happy always to listen and to develop a collaborative plan of action that can
Yes.
serve your needs. So I'm happy always to listen and to again, just develop that partnership and
Uh-huh.
be able to provide you with a space that acknowledges you as a human being and for us both to work together toward those goals.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point that you said, is that also for professionals like other therapists who have clients, they could still remain the therapist client and then if they just had clients who needed some type of specific services like the brain spotting or the sport or performance psychology, the therapist or other professionals can reach out to you and talk to you about the case and see how you can work together with the other professionals to meet the treatment plan goals of their clients.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks so much.
Thank you.